Mia Carter, 29, never imagined she'd be sleeping on the floor of her childhood home. She had always believed that if she did everything right, excelled in school, stayed responsible, caused no trouble, then life would reward her with a clear career path. After graduating with honors in architecture from UC Berkeley, she had high hopes of joining a top-tier design firm in New York. But the economic downturn hit like an unannounced storm, wiping out jobs across the architecture industry. Glowing portfolios went unanswered. Applications vanished into silence. With no other option, she moved back in with her parents in the suburbs of Albany, New York. At first, her parents, Charles and Linda Carter, seemed supportive. Her mother would pack snacks for interviews, and her father would help revise cover letters. Their modest home was full of old memories. Her childhood bedroom remained untouched, design sketches still pinned to the walls, architectural models lined up neatly, and the desk where she'd spent countless nights dreaming of sustainable spaces that made a difference. Chloe, her 17-year-old sister, was in her senior year of high school. Unlike Mia's methodical nature, Chloe was spontaneous and bubbly. Yet despite their differences, the sisters had always been close. Chloe would barge into Mia's room to vent about high school drama or ask for help with her college essays. Mia didn't mind those interruptions, brought back the warmth of their old bond after years apart. Each day, Mia followed a strict routine: job applications in the morning, house chores in the afternoon. She cooked dinner 3 nights a week, helped her father fix the back deck, and even paid $300 a month from her dwindling savings to help with household bills. She didn't want to be a burden. She believed she was contributing as a responsible adult. But cracks began to form. One evening at dinner, Linda proudly announced that Chloe had been accepted into her school's honors program. She beamed, piling extra roast chicken onto Chloe's plate. Charles, in passing, mentioned Mia was in honors too back in the day. Linda responded with a shrug. Yeah, but it was easier back then. Chloe's got real competition. Chloe shot Mia an apologetic look, but Mia just smiled and shifted the topic. She told herself not to take it to heart. After all, she had an important interview lined up with Langston Design Group, a mid-sized firm known for sustainable commercial projects. This could be her chance. If she landed it, maybe she could finally afford to move out, rent a studio, and start over. What she didn't know was that just 2 days after that hopeful dinner, everything she thought she could rely on, especially her family, was about to be upended. 2 days after that dinner Mia had thought might signal a new beginning. She returned home from a meeting with a local contractor who'd agreed to let her shadow him on projects. The house was unusually quiet that afternoon. Entering through the side door, she called out, but no one answered. Assuming her family was out, she headed upstairs to change before prepping dinner. At the top of the stairs, she froze. Boxes, her books, clothes, architecture supplies were stacked haphazardly in the narrow hallway. At first, she thought they'd been robbed, but nothing was missing. Only displaced. She pushed open the door to what had once been her room. The change was jarring. Chloe's queen-sized bed replaced her twin. Her drafting table was gone, replaced by a cluttered vanity. Posters of pop stars now hung where her architectural sketches once proudly lived. It wasn't just a room rearranged, it was a deliberate erasure. "Oh, you're back," Linda said, casually appearing with a laundry basket. "We moved your things. Chloe needs more space for senior year." Mia turned, her voice caught. "You moved me out without asking." "Well, you were out all day," her mother replied, as if that explained everything. "And you're barely here lately, always off meeting people. Where am I supposed to sleep?" "The living room floor's fine," Charles chimed in, emerging from the master bedroom. "We've still got that old sleeping bag from camping trips, just until you get things figured out." Their words landed like quiet punches. Mia said nothing. Chloe leaned against the doorway. "I just needed more space for college stuff." She shrugged. And it's not like you have a real job yet. Mia felt herself float outside her own body, watching it unfold like a bad scene in a play. She didn't yell, didn't argue, just nodded. That night, she spread the thin sleeping bag across the living room floor, wedged between the coffee table and TV stand. Each time someone walked past, she curled in tighter. The hardwood dug into her hips. The heat clicked loudly. Upstairs, she heard Chloe's music, her laughter on the phone, as if mocking her invisibility. The next morning, she rose before sunrise and packed away the sleeping bag before anyone came down. No one asked how she slept. Instead, Linda said, "Could you keep your toiletries in a caddy? Chloe needs the bathroom counter for her skincare." Her clothes stayed wrinkled in boxes. The hallway became her closet. Conversations now passed around her, not with her. When she mentioned an encouraging email from a firm, no one responded. But Chloe's student government updates got full attention. Despite her displacement, the expectations remained: cook dinner clean, the house contribute financially. She wasn't a guest, but no longer a valued member either. Mia realized she'd been removed from her space, her voice, and now her dignity. But she also realized something else: words would change nothing. Her response would have to be built, not spoken. On her third consecutive Friday night sleeping on the living room floor, Mia didn't sleep. The house was dark. Her parents' soft snoring drifted down the stairs, and Chloe's typing echoed faintly from the room that used to be hers. Mia lay still in her sleeping bag, eyes fixed on the ceiling. She felt no more anger, just a cold, focused clarity forming in her chest. There was no point in arguing, pleading, or waiting. Her family had made their decision. Now it was time to make hers. Early the next morning, while the house remained asleep, Mia opened her laptop and started browsing real estate listings in the neighborhood. Each click brought her closer to freedom. After hours of searching, she stopped scrolling at a modest 3-bedroom house directly next door. It had been vacant for several months, the previous owners having relocated out of state. The price had dropped twice due to cosmetic wear and needed repairs. But to Mia, it wasn't run down, it was full of possibility. That afternoon, she toured the property with Melanie, a local real estate agent. As they walked across faded hardwood floors, through a kitchen frozen in the 1980s, and under dated floral wallpaper, Mia didn't flinch. "The bones are good," she said, running her hand along the doorway. "And this backyard?" She stopped at the kitchen window, looking out onto the yard, one that directly bordered her parents' fence. A slow, deliberate smile spread across her face. "I'm interested," Mia said. "Very interested." The very next day, after receiving a formal offer letter from Langston Design Group confirming her position as a junior architect, Mia met with a loan officer at First Horizon Bank. With her new employment contract, excellent credit, and a modest inheritance from her grandmother Eleanor, something her family didn't know about, she qualified easily for a mortgage. "You're making a smart move," Bernard, the loan officer, said as he stamped her paperwork. "This area's property value has been rising steadily, even during the recession." "I'm thinking long-term," Mia replied, signing the documents with calm precision. Throughout the closing process, she maintained the same routine at home. She left early each morning, claiming to be attending job fairs or networking events. She came home in time for dinner, nodded at small talk, and never once mentioned she was not only employed, but preparing to become the owner of the house next door. Once the purchase was finalized, Mia hired Raphael, a contractor recommended by Melanie, to begin renovations. "I need the bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen functional in 6 weeks," she told him. "The rest can wait." Raphael nodded, jotting down notes. "What about the backyard? Any plans there?" Mia smiled. "Very specific ones. But we'll get to that later." Each evening after work, Mia slipped next door to oversee the progress. She made decisions on paint colors, fixtures, flooring, and layout. Room by room, inch by inch, the space began to transform, not just into a house, but into a declaration. She didn't tell her family. She didn't need to. This time her answer wouldn't come through words. It would be built quietly, deliberately, and unforgettably. Moving day arrived with no fanfare, no farewell hugs, no dramatic exit. It was just another Monday to the world, but for Mia, it was the morning she stopped being the girl on the floor and became the owner of her own story. She woke at 5:00 a.m. The house was silent, the old heater humming steadily. Everyone else was still asleep upstairs, tucked in warm beds. Mia hadn't slept. She didn't need an alarm. She had been wide awake all night. Quietly, she rolled up her sleeping bag, folding it with care, and tucked it neatly into the coat closet beneath the stairs. A parting gift of sorts. A silent message: I was here. I endured. And I left more gently than I was treated. 2 suitcases, 1 backpack, and a few small boxes were all she needed. She packed her car with practiced efficiency. No drama. Just movement. Just freedom. On the kitchen counter, she left a handwritten note. Found my own place. Won't need the floor anymore. No explanations, no goodbyes, just truth. She drove away like it was any other work day, but this time she wasn't heading to the office. She was heading home. Unlocking the front door of her newly purchased house, Mia stepped into the space she had built from quiet planning and determination. The scent of fresh paint lingered. Clean lines, soft lighting, hardwood floors. Minimal furniture arranged with intent and taste. This wasn't just a house. It was her reclamation, her declaration. At 8:00 a.m., her phone buzzed. First a text from her mother. Where are you? Your sleeping bag is gone. Then her father. What's going on? Did you really move out? And surprisingly, Chloe, you moved. Where are you staying? Mia didn't respond. She spent her day fully immersed in work finalizing renderings for the sustainable office project at Langston Design. Focused, steady, empowered. By the time she returned that evening, the sun had just begun to dip. As she pulled into the driveway of her own home, she saw her parents through their kitchen window, both of them watching as she retrieved her suitcases from the trunk and walked up to her front door. They stood frozen, processing what was unmistakable. Mia now lived next door. She didn't wave, didn't look their way. She simply stepped into her house and closed the door behind her quietly but firmly. In that single act, Mia said everything they had refused to hear. She didn't yell. She didn't demand acknowledgement. She didn't need to. Her exit, silent but not small, was a statement all its own. Less than 24 hours after Mia had quietly moved out, someone was already knocking on her new front door. She was arranging books on her freshly installed shelves when the doorbell rang. Stepping into the hallway, she peeked through the peephole. Her parents, Charles and Linda, stood on the porch. Their expressions flickered with confusion, discomfort, and just the faintest hint of expectation. Charles wore his old garden sweater, and Linda clutched her purse like it might grant her access by default. Mia opened the door, but only part way. She stood squarely in the frame, blocking their view beyond her. Morning light spilled over her shoulder, illuminating the calm, curated interior behind her neutral-toned furniture minimalist, lighting a clean architectural print above the sofa. Mia Linda began, voice sweetened with practiced gentleness. What is this? You bought this house when? 6 weeks ago, Mia replied evenly. 6 weeks, Charles blinked. How could we not know? Because no one asked, Mia answered. No one ever asked where I was going every day. No one asked about interviews or jobs. Everyone was too busy, picking paint swatches for Chloe's new room. Linda's smile tightened. Well, if you needed anything, you should have said something. Mia tilted her head. Like you did before moving all my belongings into the hallway. Silence hovered over the porch. From across the lawn, Mia spotted Chloe stepping cautiously out of their house, hovering near the edge of the driveway, uncertain. We're family, Charles said, his voice heavy. Families don't shut each other out like this. Families. Mia echoed, don't force someone to sleep on the floor when there's an empty room. Families don't dismiss someone's effort just because they're struggling. And families don't only claim the word family when they're feeling guilty. Linda stepped forward as if muscle memory had already decided she would be let inside. Let's talk about this inside, okay? Mia stepped back, then paused. No, she said softly but clearly. This is my home. And from now on, I decide who enters it. Her parents' faces shifted from surprise to disbelief to something like embarrassment. They were used to assuming that every space Mia occupied was still theirs to access. But this threshold was no longer theirs to cross. What do you do now? Charles asked, groping for normalcy. I work at Langston Design Group, Mia said. Junior architect. Been there for 6 weeks. Linda's eyes flicked between the room behind Mia and her daughter's face. You could have told us. I tried, Mia said. You weren't listening. A rumble cut through the air, loud, mechanical, steady. Charles turned toward the sound. What's that? Excavation, Mia replied. The pool. It's being built. In the backyard, Charles blinked again. Directly in line with your kitchen window, she said. I figured it'd make the view more memorable. And with that, Mia closed the door, not angrily, not dramatically, just with certainty. The pool excavation began right on schedule, the low roar of machinery echoing across the quiet neighborhood the very next morning. From the kitchen window of her parents' home, the view was inescapable. What was once a plain backyard behind Mia's new house was now a flurry of motion earth being carved out into precise shapes that made one thing clear: this was not temporary. That afternoon, Linda didn't come to the front door. She circled around the back where construction continued. Mia stood by the contractor reviewing pool dimensions and plumbing schematics, her hair tied back, clipboard in hand. This seems excessive, Mia. Her mother's voice cut through the mechanical noise. No greeting, just judgment. Are you trying to make some kind of statement? Mia turned calmly, her gaze steady. I'm creating a home that reflects my values, she said. Just like you did when you decided the floor was suitable for your daughter. Linda's lips thinned. It was supposed to be temporary. So is this, Mia replied, eyes returning to the blueprints. Families make sacrifices for each other, Linda said, as if reciting from a handbook of parental defense. No one sacrificed anything, Mia said flatly. They just made it easier for themselves at someone else's expense. Linda's gaze shifted to the growing outline of the pool. And this, she gestured toward the construction site directly facing our kitchen window. That's not intentional. Oh, it's absolutely intentional, Mia nodded. So that every time you look out, you remember the daughter you stepped over who was building all of this while you pretended she didn't matter. For the first time, Linda didn't have a comeback. She stood there quiet, the sound of jackhammers filling the void. But Mia didn't feel triumphant. She hadn't built the pool to win. She had built it to heal. Still, she didn't invite her mother inside. The conversation ended on the back porch, framed by the thrum of power tools and the low sun casting long shadows across the yard. Mia stepped inside, leaving the door to close gently behind her, not slammed, not locked. Just firm. From that day forward, the pool became something the Carters couldn't ignore. Every morning over coffee, every evening during dinner, the glimmering water stared back at them. The sound of the waterfall feature became a daily presence, gentle, constant, undeniable. Mia no longer had to raise her voice. Her life was now visible. A quiet reply. Perfectly placed. Since Mia had moved into the house next door, her parents had begun making small efforts to reconnect. But not in the way she had once longed for when she was still sleeping on their floor. In the second week, Linda arrived at Mia's front door with a tray of homemade cookies, smiling like a neighbor introducing herself for the first time. Just a little something to celebrate your new home, she said carefully, skimming over everything that had led to this point. Mia accepted the cookies with a polite thank you, but didn't open the door any wider. She didn't invite her mother in. A few days later, Charles showed up holding a paint color catalog, offering to help her pick shades for the living room. I used to do a little work with remodeling, he said casually. Mia gave a small smile. I've already hired a designer. But thanks, Dad. Neither of them mentioned the sleeping bag. Neither acknowledged the weeks Mia spent curled on the hardwood floor like a guest in her own life. Every olive branch they extended avoided the one thing that mattered most: accountability. So Mia kept her distance, polite, not bitter, but firm. The most telling moment came one late afternoon as the waterfall feature for the pool was finally installed. The sleek stone structure rose from the backyard in full view of her parents' kitchen window, impossible to ignore. Linda arrived at the back gate clearly flustered. This is really a bit much, Mia. Was it necessary? I think so, Mia replied, sipping her iced tea. You've never actually apologized, but that's okay. I don't need an apology unless it comes with change. I already told you it was just a difficult time. All families go through things. The difference, Mia said, eyes focused on the shimmering pool, is that healthy families own their mistakes. Others just show up with cookies and hope the past fades on its own. Linda didn't argue. Mia didn't elaborate. There was no more anger between them, just clarity. And for the first time, Mia realized she wasn't seeking validation anymore. She had already claimed her worth, and she didn't need anyone else to stamp it. Each morning when Mia opened her bedroom curtains, she could see the roof of her old home beyond the low fence. And each evening when the soft glow of the pool lights danced across her living room ceiling, she was reminded of the most important thing she had learned. Boundaries weren't about keeping others out. They were about keeping herself whole. She no longer felt angry. The sting of betrayal, of being overlooked, had once surged through her like crashing waves. Now it had settled like water after a storm. What remained was clarity. Mia couldn't change how her parents behaved, but she could absolutely change how she responded to them. When Linda brought up the idea of a family dinner during a chance encounter by the mailbox, Mia simply smiled and said, "I'm not ready for that. At least not yet." You never needed space before, her mother sighed. I always needed it, Mia replied gently. I just didn't know how to ask for it until you showed me what happens when I don't have any. It wasn't an accusation, it was a truth. Mia's new life found its rhythm. She spent weekends tending to the flower beds in front of her porch, took on more responsibility at Langston Design Group, and had regular Sunday coffee dates with Chloe. She hadn't shut her family out, she had just made it clear that if they wanted to be part of her world, they needed to knock first. Chloe was the first to understand that. The younger sister didn't deflect, didn't minimize what had happened. One crisp fall morning as they walked through the neighborhood park, Chloe said quietly, I think I used to just take. And you were always giving without anyone really seeing it. You were younger, Mia replied. You still have time to do things differently. Like you did, Chloe smiled. Mia nodded, not in pride, but because it was the right thing to do. The space between the two houses no longer felt like a wall. It had become a bridge, one that allowed Mia to protect her peace, her time, and her worth. From that vantage point, she could see her family not with bitterness, but with a strange kind of gratitude. Being pushed away had taught her how to stand. Less than a year after that final night on the living room floor, Mia's life looked entirely different. Her new house wasn't just a place to sleep. It was a space she owned in every sense. Every pendant light, every window frame, every tile lining the pool had been chosen with care and clarity by someone who had once been denied not just a room, but recognition. At Langston Design Group, Mia was no longer the new hire. She had been promoted to lead architect on a sustainable housing development and was introduced personally by the firm's CEO at a city press conference. Mia Carter is living proof, the director said, that architecture isn't just about blueprints, it's about seeing potential in what others overlook. Each evening, Mia drove the same route home, passing the house where someone had once told her to sleep on the floor until she figured her life out. Now that road led to a place she had rebuilt on her own terms. Chloe visited often. She had grown in more ways than one, no longer the impulsive teenager, but a young woman learning what it meant to be accountable. One afternoon, as they sat beside the pool, Chloe turned to her sister and said, "I just got a full scholarship to State University." Mia smiled. "I'm proud of you." "I think?" "I want to study architecture," Chloe said hesitantly, as if waiting for permission. Not surprising, Mia laughed softly. "You've always had an eye for design. And now you understand things that don't come from textbooks, boundaries, fairness. The things that matter just as much." Mia's voice wasn't bitter. It carried the calm strength of someone who had been knocked down, ignored, and underestimated, but chose not to retaliate with resentment. Instead, she built something better. As the sun reflected off the blue surface of the pool, Mia understood something simple but profound from that sleeping bag, from that cold hardwood floor. From the moment she felt invisible, she had constructed a life no one could look past anymore. Summer arrived with golden sunlight and the sound of laughter echoing from Mia's backyard. The pool was complete, the garden in full bloom, and the house had become more than just a home. It was a living testament to a quiet rebirth. Mia hosted a small gathering to celebrate the final renovations. Her guests were the people who had stepped into this new chapter with her colleagues from Langston Design, supportive neighbors, new friends, and of course, Chloe. Her parents were not invited. It wasn't out of spite. It was to protect the boundary Mia had fought so hard to build. Linda had once suggested gently, "Your sister thinks maybe we should all have dinner together like the old times." Mia had simply replied, "Maybe one day, but not now, and not the way it used to be." She had learned something critical: forgiveness does not require proximity. And boundaries aren't punishments. They are reminders that say, "I deserve respect, and I don't have to ask for it." That evening, as the party reached its warm rhythm, Mia found herself standing alone by the pool. Soft lights danced on the water, laughter rang out from the patio, and mellow jazz floated from outdoor speakers. She didn't need to explain to anyone that she had made it. People could see it in her eyes, her posture, the space she had created. From the kitchen window of the old house, Linda and Charles could see it too. They watched the guests mingling, Mia raising a glass in a toast, her presence shining in the very space they once believed she couldn't create. And maybe, just maybe, for the first time, they understood. You can ignore someone's value for a while, but you can't stop them from shining once they decide to step into their own light. Mia no longer needed their validation. She no longer needed a forced hug or a shallow apology. What she needed, what she had, was herself. And the life she built no longer required permission from anyone. She would never return to that floor. Because this time she had laid down her own foundation, strong, steady, and completely hers.